What's good, music producers, and welcome to the second episode of Producer's Cut. In this series, what I basically do is walk you through every step of my process, and I give you the most important question that we all ask when we see somebody cook up. Why? Why did you do what you did? Why did you choose that instrument? Why did you do this? So this is the purpose of this series. I look forward to doing more of these. You guys really loved the first episode, and so this was a highly requested one. This is a beat called Pie, and so I'm going to actually break down the process and everything that went into it. And if you're ready to go, let's do it. The hell am I opening up Rewire for? Let's get Ripcord. Now, what I love about Ripcord is that obviously you can load in MIDI, and just like any other MIDI generator, you can do that, but they have different ways that stylistically you can express the sounds. And so with this one, I kind of went into this beat knowing that I wanted a hard hitting beat. I don't know what I was going through that day, but I know I wanted a beat that hit hard. As I cook through this, what you're going to see is that I'm looking for, more rhythmic and I guess staccato type of keys that express well through the chord progressions. And you'll see in a minute I'll discover something. Oh shit, hold on. See, it's that moment. You guys know that moment very well. Is when you play something that feels a little bit too damn close to what you were hearing in your head. As you'll notice, I play a lot of sounds over and over and over and over again during these live streams. It's because as I'm playing them, I'm starting to hear the beat play itself out. I can hear the drums. I can even hear so much detail as the 808 slides that are going to occur within it. And so as I play it, I feel like more of the beat reveals itself to me. And so I keep playing over and over and over again. All right, I want all that. I want all of that, all that smoke from that. What tempo is that? Just like I mentioned before, beatboxing your way through the process, singing your way through the process is one of the biggest cheat codes you have as a human being. You got to think of yourself as you are an endless instrument. You can create whatever sound that you want. It may not be always 1,000% accurate, but you literally have the ability to be whatever instrument you want. In this case, obviously, I'm being the drums. I think that the beat that you create off of your natural rhythm is going to always be so much better than the one that you allow the computer to control you to make. I trust you. Now, when I was kind of testing out those notes, I wanted to see what bass notes sat really well in this chord progression. What bass notes give me a different type of feeling, something unexpected, something that's going to really drive home when the drums come in. It's still going to kind of stay within the mix and find its space. And that for sure was those notes that I need to find. Now, we fast forward a little bit in the process, but as you can see, even the high notes too, I'm specifically looking at this as rhythmic instruments. This to me was what I would do to a hi-hat. This is exactly what I'm doing to the keys, and I feel like playing it this way really drives an energy before you add any instruments to it. And that's my goal at this point, is just try to drive as much natural energy before the things that are obvious energy, like the drums, come in. I want to drive it just using these melodic instruments. Now, Now, sometimes when you're not understanding the scale of where you are working with, and I think I understood the scale of this one, but in case you don't understand the scale, this is why I express once again, sing out loud, because you're going to naturally, as you sing, if you have any kind of knowledge of melody and you've been listening to music, which is the majority of us, you'll be able to kind of find your way through the keys and also see if there's keys that are out of place by seeing what you naturally sing. I say da 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 da. Yes, I even beatbox the strums. This is where your mind is telling you, hey, I hear something, you're just not doing it quite yet. And I think that's what this process is all about, is executing those ideas that are sitting internally within us. That shit got life to it. Exactly my point, is that we're trying to create an experience before the actual experience comes in, which to me, the experience is all about the drums, especially in hip hop, trap, whatever you're working on. The drums are where the obvious life comes in. But this right here, I love it. I love it because I already can feel the direction of where this beat is going. Right here, I'm in the process of trying to dirty up this sample as much as possible. This piano sample, I want to dirty it up and make it not feel so clean, because I know those drums are going to come in and they're going to need to find their own space amongst those drums, the piano keys. And so some of the things that I do are, one, to create strums which kind of fall off a little bit off of the grid of the drums that are coming in. And then also, two, dirtying it up and then setting it into a mono feature using RC20 allow me to really let it have its own space sitting dead smack there in the middle. So that's why I apply the effects that I have. The wobble is no different. I didn't want to apply too much wobble because it's going to create some key changes that I'm not trying to achieve. Sidechain that off the kick. I need to sidechain that off a kick. I need to sign that. One thing I always tell producers that I have mentored or worked with is that you always want to keep the music going, especially in the very beginning. You want to make sure, even as you are previewing instruments, a lot of times what we do as producers is that when we're making a beat, we stop the beat and then we go test out drums so we can hear them clearly. And I understand that and why you would want to do that, but within the context of what mixes together, doesn't it make more sense to actually play the music and then play the instruments that are going to sit within it? Because most of the things that you're going to do to this is going to be EQing and velocity checking, right? You're going to make sure that the volume is in the right place. These kicks were made the way that they were made for a specific reason, especially the ones like Decap, who, obviously you processes a lot of his stuff through analog. They are what they are. You got to make sure that you let them live before feeling like you have to go fix them or tweak them. And so as I'm playing this, I always preview the samples while playing the beat so I know what they sound like in context of the beat. Sidechain that off a kick. Where my... Okay, now that one, this one. I love that kick. Okay. It's so good to have a go-to kick. This one is from a vibe pack that I love so much, called No Jumper is the kick. You want to have your go-to kicks because sometimes you just put in instruments, and this is what I do. I put in instruments as placemakers that are going to be replaced at some point with something else that I take time with, but right now it's all about momentum. And I'm not looking for the perfect snare, perfect kick, because when I do that, once again, you get into that danger zone of trying to over-perfect something that you don't even quite have a grasp over. So have your go-to sounds and have them very close. Okay. And if it's time, then it's time. Okay, now if it's time, then it's time. So as you can see, I also use this kick knowing that it occupies a lot of sonic space. I wanted to use this kick to basically sidechain the piano and have the piano basically duck in velocity every time the kick pumps through. So it just feels like the kick is just thumping through even heavier. For some people, they don't like it. Some people, they listen to it and be like, yo, this bang. If it's the time. Ooh. It was important to keep the kick simplistic in this because I felt like the piano already has a lot of rhythm within it. But the kick just has to be simplistic because it's just trying to find special moments that the piano can't get to, or heavier low end frequencies, I should say. So I kept that simple so that when you're listening to it, you're like, man, I can already hear where the snare goes because you placed the kicks this simplistic within this. Where he at? Point him out, point him out. Where he at? Point it out now. Now, because his kick was so heavy on the low end, there's certain frequencies of that kick that you're just not going to need, especially when you add the 808 and bass. They're just not going to be necessary, and you're not going to hear them anyway. But I try to make sure that the lowest band on the left side, the bass band or the sub band, I try to take it and move it about 20 hertz, 26, 25 hertz. It's not really about the numbers as much as it is about trying to get rid of what you see on that grid as just really muddy ass bass sounds coming from the kick. But I like to keep the majority of the bass within the kick. Even if it does clash a little bit with the 808, I like to keep that there because I just love the sound of the low end on the kick. Now, where he at? Point him out. Now I grab that third frequency because that's where the actual punch comes from. I feel like the majority of where your punch comes from a kick to make it sound clean is in that third band and that low, mid to bass frequency. Something I like to use a lot of times also to make sure that the kick is not going over 0. Even though I got the soft clipper on the master, I also like to make sure that I use this other clipper called Smack Attack. So this clipper right here is really helping the kick still feel like the kick is very loud, or as loud as it was, or as loud as I like it to be without clipping. I get to really control those parameters and not worry about, okay, is this going to be blowing somebody's speakers out? And as you can see, I'm beatboxing these hi-hats because that's just where I naturally want to go next. And many times the instruments and how I lay them out are going to be very similar to what I beatbox. And so at that point in time, what I'm looking at is what sound as similar to this beatbox that I'm creating. And then sometimes leave myself open to some surprises. Yeah. I want to use a snare I never used before. Let's find something there. Okay, hold on. Now, something I do that's not really it's not something I suggest to everybody, is that I'll make decisions that have absolutely nothing to do with music. I said I wanted to use a snare because I just want to use a different snare sound. That's cool and all, but that has nothing to do with executing upon this beat in a musical sense. What I said here was something I actually ended up changing, but sometimes it's good to experiment with snares and see, okay, if there's a different texture within this, but sometimes, more times than not, you're going to go to your old faithfuls. And as you'll see, I went to a snare that felt very at home. Hold on. I need a snare that I ain't never used before. No snare that I ain't never used before. There goes Smack Attack again. Now, something you saw me do, and I'll actually go back a little bit, something you saw me do with the Smack Attack is that I took the sustain down so that I can get just the most special parts of that snare. There was some tail end to that snare. I don't know, it was too long of a snare. So I wanted to cut that off so that I get the initial smack of the snare without changing the rhythm or the bounce of the beat. So that's what I did. Yeah. This is one of those times where I heard a rhythm inside my head. I don't know why I chose sort of this military style drumming with the JD snare, but something felt like, I don't know if it's my my early G Unit high-tech influences, but this is definitely something that gave it a whole nother vibe. This made sense for some reason. It's like I hear a rhythm in my head, and until I lay it down, it will not leave. And this is one of those examples. sometimes it pays to go to the snare that you know is going to work, and this is an example of that. This one just works. I love it. Because I had that kick as a stand-in kick, the no jumper one, it satisfied what I needed, right? I just needed that to fill in some space for a second and give me the feeling of what it would feel like for the beat to be done. It keeps me motivated. But I wanted to replace that with another kick because I'm starting to hear this beat in a different way, and the way that I'm hearing it is calling for different textures. Right now, I am on a chase for things that are going to make this energy feel even more legit, right? And when I say legit, I'm just looking for anything, honestly. That's why I love using Voxes, because you get so many unexpected rhythms from a Vox one shot. And so I'm just looking for something that's going to make me say, I never have heard this with this when I'm playing and making and working on, and I don't know what that sounds like, and that kind of excites me. That's my goal right now. And I found it. Let's try it. And that's the attitude. Just try it. At the end of the day, these are DAWs, fam. Like, you can't break them, first of all. And second of all, if it doesn't work, there's a button on your keyboard called delete. You better use it. Something I love to do is to use these vocals once again as if they're like hats, hi-hats, or they're just other rhythmic instruments in it. And so what I did was I basically shaped the sample, this vocal sample. I shaped it in the same way that I shaped my 808s. I have the ultimate control of how long it sustains and just really the way and style that it attacks. And that's exactly what I did here, was that I started to use this as a melodic instrument in its own right. And literally, the 808 is looking the same as it did for the vocal sample in this sense. I think the only thing that I did was take down the sustain and the decay a little bit more, but it's the same thing. Now, we're working on the 808s. One thing that you see that I always do is I like to go up to the highest octave that I can to where the 808 feels like almost like a piano key or something that feels like it has a lot of melodic nature to it, because I want to be able to hear it clearly, because if I know it's in key there and it works with the rest of the beat there, on the low end it's going to be beautiful. Now, one thing that I like to do, and I hate to do this to you right now because I know you were ready for that snare, but one thing I like to do is to mute sounds like the snare and mute just anything that's going to make the beat feel like, okay, it's there. We're officially at the verse. I like to build that anticipation up. Building that anticipation up is not just for the audience that's watching me. That's for me as well. I got to make sure that as I'm going through this, I'm like, yo, you can't stop. You got to keep, man, you can't keep adding stuff and not let this beat play out. But as I'm doing this, this is getting me hyped. So then when I eventually drop the snare, it just makes it feel like, ah, man, yes, that's what all this work was for. Give me the hi-hats and the It's literally the same hi-hat that I beatboxed. And this is why I say do it and do it often, because you'll be surprised by the ideas and the quality of the ideas that are already naturally within you. I don't know why this happened. I don't know where the idea came from. But as I'm making the beat, you ever hear a sound just come out of nowhere in your brain and you're like, Cash register. Cash register. Almost sound like Napoleon Dynamite. Cash register. That's what I heard in my head. As I'm playing this beat, I just heard a ring. It just felt like, I don't know I cannot explain it, but I heard it, but I had to satisfy that voice inside my head that was like, yo, run that cash register. Now, there's a reason why I took it to the playlist option instead of doing it within the actual pattern mode. I want to be able to control the exact timing of it because BPM-wise, even though it's not the same BPM as the beat, it works. I can hear it and know rhythmically it works within the context of the beat. But I need to be able to the very detail, get that in the right place, because sometimes within the pattern mode, I feel a bit of restriction. When I'm able to see all the sounds laid out and I can just get that sound, grab it and shift it just ever so slightly off of the snare, it works better. In addition to that, I started to add a delay to this just so that it felt like the cash register naturally fits within the beat. Just a little bit of pre-mixing. I'm warning you right now, this is a danger zone for me because the beat is already feeling like a very complete beat. I know that there's probably one or two elements that I want to add, but my brain is going crazy and wants to add 17 other instruments to it just to make it feel even larger, just to keep that energy going even more. But this is a very dangerous place because, as you see, I went from a guitar to Arquise in a matter of seconds. I'm being very indecisive at this point, so it's very important for me to get back on track. Let's go to action strings. Let's do that. Or emotive strings, maybe. Yeah. It started sounding really, really cloudy here, right? And this is more than just mixing. This is just making bad choices instrument-wise. In my opinion, I felt like it was making choices that didn't make sense with each other. But you got to experiment. You got to do too much to know what is too much. Nope, too much. Too damn much. All right, I got to find something that's just going to pad underneath it. Something that just gives me a vibe that I want to rock with. See how important the pianos are? I'm literally playing this now almost in the same style as the piano, except that the strings carry a different frequency and they sound entirely different when you play them in a staccato mode. This is starting to sound like, oh, please bring the drums back. Whatever instruments, when I'm not playing the drums, make me want to bring the drums back, those are the ones that I try to add. Look at me down there. I'm losing my damn mind. This is hilarious. Whoa. When I back that chair up, I could fight an elephant. I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Peter. But I could walk in the gym and kick over a row of treadmills and everybody's standing on them and then they fall off. That's how much energy I feel like when that happens. So now I'm formatting the beat. Now that I have this in the right place in the pattern mode, because I know a lot of folks are like, man, why don't you just make your beats in the song mode? The pattern mode has everything that I'm going to really need because I can literally take sounds out, branch them out, and then create choruses and verses. I don't really create beats thinking of choruses and verses. I think of them as movements. First movement is the intro. Second movement is, I guess, what you would consider the verse, where things are not as busy. And then the chorus is where things get either really, really climactic or they cool out. So that's a third movement. But if I get those third movements done in any session, the beat is pretty much done until I'm ready to come back and mix it. Once again, this is one of those examples where as I was playing the beat, I was looping around parts of the beat and I kept hearing the beginning looping around, and it sounded so good with that piano and the strings and the bass. I was like, I think I'm going to have to do sort of that Pharrell 4 to the floor type of situation. And for some reason, I just felt right, especially with the sound effect coming in. When I growl like that, that's my approval. Now, this was interesting because when you are working on movements, one thing that you're going to see, and anybody who was part of my music producer power course, one thing that you saw is that this is where you have the most fun. And that second movement, this is where you have the most fun because you get to really mess around with drops, transitions, and then this is where you get to really utilize loops in a way that maybe you wouldn't traditionally do them. I like to use loops sometimes to do work that would take about another additional 20, 30 minutes and take me out of my zone. I can get that in a drum loop. And so I got this Slap X from the Slap Experts drum pack, this UK drum loop that I was like, yo, what if I went UK drill just for like 1 bar measure, right? Just for a few bars. And it worked. Then I could mess around with the 808s and I could really, really mess around with the listener who's like, yo, where the hell did this beat just go? But it still works. So that's the thinking behind that. So as if this beat couldn't go to another transition because I wasn't thinking necessarily chorus after doing all of the transitions, I said, you know what? I want this to become like really energetic and really tribal towards the end of it. I want this just to feel like, you know, like when you're watching movies and there's like a fire in the middle of a village and you got like the folks doing like tribal ceremonies and you see the energy of the people and how excited they are to be there. That is the vision that I have in my mind as I'm putting this together. And so I got these it says Afro Tech, but these Afro Tech tribal vocals that I added, and I was like, yo, I need to halftime the drums and then use some more worldly instruments like this loop or this shaker that I have, this gyro shaker, and really just see if I can create a whole nother world just for the outro of the beat. And there it is.
Yeah, that's cooked.
Look up, Nazi. Say cheese.